Israel is dismayed by Prince William's call for an end to the fighting in Gaza but do not want to risk entering a public row with the future king following his unprecedented royal intervention, as reported last night. Before we proceed, please kindly subscribe, like, comment and turn on the notification bell. In an extraordinary and symbolically significant statement, the heir to the throne said the terrible human cost of the Israel-Hamas conflict had seen too many killed. I, like so many others, want to see an end to the fighting as soon as possible, said William, 41. He also highlighted the desperate need for more humanitarian aid for the civilians of Gaza and, notably, called on Hamas to release its remaining Israeli hostages. The prince's carefully chosen words are the strongest yet by a senior royal in response to Israel's devastating military action in Gaza following the sickening terror attacks of October 7. Israeli chiefs are understood to have been caught off by the prince's intervention, and the Telegraph reports they consider his public statement to be naive. The newspaper claims they are dismayed, but do not want to risk clashing with Britain's future king. It comes ahead of a crunch vote in the Commons yesterday on a second SNP-led motion for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Last night, the UK government put forward an amendment to counter the SNP's ceasefire motion in a move that could expose Labour splits over conflict. Labour had looked to avoid another possible rebellion over the Israel-Hamas war by tabling its own amendment to the SNP motion. Sir Keir Starmer's party yesterday publicly shifted its stance to back a call for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire, giving MPs who were unhappy with the leadership's previous handling of the issue a wording to rally behind. But the government's decision to table its own counter-amendment to the motion increases the likelihood that the Commons Speaker will not choose the Labour amendment for debate today. It could leave Labour MPs with the choice between voting for the government's position, which does not go as far as calling for an immediate ceasefire, and the SNP's stance. The debate will be going on as thousands of pro-Palestinian demonstrators are expected to take part in a rally in Parliament Square on Wednesday. Lisa Nandy, Shadow International Development Minister, said Labour's proposal for a ceasefire differs from the SNP's by emphasising that it must be two-sided. She told Good Morning Britain, "On the question of immediate ceasefire, there's no difference. We have used the language of our international, Five Eyes, partners Australia, Canada and New Zealand, who over the last few days have called for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. We think that adds weight to those calls, that the world is speaking with one voice as the ground invasion of Rafah is imminent and it must be averted. But there are significant differences between our proposition and the SNP's. We are clear that any ceasefire by definition must be two-sided, that Israel can't be expected to lay down its weapons if Hamas doesn't observe the terms of that ceasefire. The SNP motion is vague, whether deliberately or otherwise, on that point, and we think it's extremely important that we send that message." She added that Labour's amendment also included a political horizon and a pathway to peace, in the long term, which the SNP motion did not. Prince William's public statement also came ahead of a visit by the Prince of Wales to the British Red Cross in London to discuss the spiralling humanitarian crisis in Gaza and beyond. His statement was issued with the knowledge of the Foreign and Commonwealth Office and welcomed by Downing Street, which said his measured call for an end to the fighting was in line with the government's position. Royal aides emphasized that it was the extent of the human suffering that is on display which had led him to make the statement he has today. They would not confirm whether it had the backing of the king. But father and son did meet in Norfolk at the weekend, where Charles is recuperating from cancer treatment. However, the statement also puts the heir to the throne at risk of accusations of meddling. Last night some Tory MPs criticized William, with suggestions that he risked undermining the underlying principle of our constitutional monarchy. Israel's government spokesman Eylon Levy issued a more diplomatic response to the prince's intervention, saying, "Israelis of course want to see an end to the fighting as soon as possible, and that will be possible once the 134 hostages are released, and once the Hamas terror army threatening to repeat the 7th of October atrocities is dismantled. We appreciate the Prince of Wales's call for Hamas to free the hostages. We also recall with gratitude his statement from the 11th of October condemning Hamas's terror attacks and reaffirming Israel's right of self-defense against them." Sources close to the heir to the throne acknowledged that the issues surrounding the crisis are highly politicized. But they stressed that having undertaken a well-received visit to both Israel and the West Bank in 2018, William had been following events closely. Please drop your thoughts in the comments box.